our chairman was unable to be here. He's away at work. So the first thing that we have to do is elect a temporary chair. So I'm going to do that now.
I nominate Amy Bailey as the chair for that.
I'm it. Oh, good. We got it? Okay. So, like I say, we are waiting. When it comes time for questioning, I'm going to ask that everybody be respectful, raise your hand. I'll do my best to get as many of you as I can for questioning. Yes, thank you. And Bob up front here has a portable wireless mic so that we can talk into the mic. That way everybody can hear. And that will help a lot. So I'm just asking your cooperation with that. I want to keep things as orderly as possible because we have a time constraint. We have a select board meeting that we have to, the three of us, Paula, Dennis and myself, we need to go downstairs and have a regular select board meeting. So we need to end this meeting about 7 o'clock. And I'm going to ask everyone to leave at that time, please, because we need to have a meeting. So we will proceed shortly, I hope.
Seems like almost everyone here has a question on pieces of paper. I'm wondering if we can extend the question period a few minutes past 7?
No.
So start now.
Yeah, can we start the questions now until the first?
I'd rather not.
They're not prepared.
Yeah, but Alan is the spokesperson, Alan Fore, who's on his way. And I would rather wait and see the presentation because that will prompt questions. And it might also answer questions. I don't know.
You guys got your guardian dog, huh? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think it was Derek. Yes, there you go. I only found out my good day. I get why. I mean, I understand why it's a select board. It's a select board downstairs.
That's one that I planted.
Get started as soon as he's here. Yep, and I guess they've got some pre-typed questions that they'll get to after Alan does a general overview of the project. So thank you for your patience, and I apologize.
Minutes. Apparently this thing got turned around someplace. So he will be here and we will extend our time to 7:30. While you're sitting here waiting, if you can possibly be brief with the question, it will help a lot. So we can get as many questions out there as possible. So if you can formulate your question ahead of time, that might help. One question per person. Thank you, I was going to say that. And we're not going to get to everything, obviously. I'm asking for your patience here. We're going to try to do as many questions as we possibly can, and we want to stick to the program that's going to be presented as much as possible with the questions. Just as much as you can. Try to focus on what we'll be seeing here, the presentation, and I'd like the majority of the questions to come from that. So we should be ready in a few minutes as soon as he's here. These gentlemen are going to help get everything going quick. Thank you.
tonight. This is what you get when you have a guy from Boston driving you, and a guy driving a guy from Chicago. So we apologize. We don't do this. We arrive on time ahead of time, and we were driving around in circles for about 45 minutes, I think. So we finally made it, and I realize now that don't rely on GPS in this area. It goes out, it tells you to go down dead-end roads, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure our land people are much more knowledgeable than I am about the area, but anyway, I do apologize, and the Selectmen have been kind enough to say we'll have the full time period that was originally allotted so we can get to as many of your questions as possible. As mentioned, I'm Alan Fore. I head our public affairs for Kinder Morgan, which is responsible for community relations and government relations. And what I want to do today is tell you about our project, who we are as a company, what we're planning potentially as a project, and the next steps that you can see over the next few months. We've done a lot of these town meetings so far. We have been, I think, we'll probably end up doing 20 or 30 of these before we're done, because transparency is very important to the process, and having opportunities like this not only talk to elected officials, but those who are supportive, those who are opposed, certainly your right to make your voices heard. But a little bit about our company. We are the largest transporter of natural gas in the country, and that's our primary core business. All of these different lines on the map represent different natural gas pipelines across the United States. Servicing the Northeast, of course, that's the purple line, the Tennessee Gas Pipeline System, which services this area, the Southeast, the West, and the Northwest, and the Chicago area as well. So 70,000 miles of pipe transporting natural gas across the country. And transport, as you can see on this map, our pipes are situated across various shale plays across the country. This is primarily where the natural gas comes from, different shale plays across the country. One of the more recent shale plays that has drawn a lot of attention in the region is the Marcellus and Utica shales. This shale play, as you can see here, is larger than most others in the United States. So traditionally, you've had gas transported from the west and from the southwest to the region. Now there's a very, very extensive supply of natural gas in the region already, which makes transportation to the region much easier, which has allowed the potential for projects like we're talking about today. A little bit more about the Tennessee gas system. Remember the system here, the purple system. This is a little closer look at it. Situated right above the Marcellus Shale. So that's where a lot of the gas is being drawn from for projects like this. In fact, 60-70% of the gas currently serving New England is from the Marcellus Shale. That's anticipated to be 90+% in the next 20 years. So currently we're serving about 35 million households across the region with our Tennessee gas pipeline system. These are some of the customers that we currently serve in New England. So we've been in the area for quite some time serving customers. And many of these, we hope, will be customers on our new line. In Massachusetts, we've got about 46 employees, about 600 miles of pipe. So remember that purple line that started back in the the Gulf area. This is just the Massachusetts piece of it. So about 600 miles of that Tennessee gas pipeline is currently located in the state of Massachusetts. About $5.8 million we pay in taxes, including about $50,000 to Hampshire County tax bodies. This may be familiar to a couple of things that we have done with our Tennessee gas pipeline system. We worked with the Berkshire Natural Resources Council, Olivia's Overlook, and also as part of the Bog Stewardship Committee. Just a couple of things that we do in areas where we have construction projects. So why are we talking about a new pipeline project in the region? Well, it's based upon those individuals and policymakers who are in the energy business or in the distribution of energy business saying we need it. And these are some of the headlines that have been recently in the press about gas capacity constraints and high and volatile gas commodity prices. And that is because there's a lack of infrastructure. The infrastructure is full. And all of the United States senators from the region, including those from Massachusetts, have signed on to a letter to the Secretary of Energy stating that the New England market is at risk because of potential impacts to pipeline capacity. Energy infrastructure is inadequate to meet the demands currently in the market. The governors of all of the states in New England have also signed letters, including Governor Patrick in Massachusetts, saying that we need additional infrastructure. Yes, we need to rely more on renewables, but we also need renewable generation and natural gas pipelines, electric transmission. So it's a need put forth by the policymakers in the states where we do business. And we're a transportation company, so we address transportation infrastructure needs. Why natural gas? Natural gas is currently about 52% of the electricity provided in the region. So 52%, a lot of these other areas continue to go down, except for renewables continues to go up, but the other major providers continue to go down. As I mentioned before, 92% of the gas in the region is expected to be shale gas from the Marcellus Shale in the next, say, 10 to 20 years. So, as I mentioned, we're a transportation project. We build infrastructure based upon the needs and interests of our customers, and our customers are typically distribution companies like Berkshire Gas and others that distribute gas to customers. So we're looking at the Northeast Expansion Project. And this is a map of our project, beginning in Wright, New York, ending in Dracut, Massachusetts. It's about 250 miles of pipe, that's including the large 30 or 36-inch main line and several laterals that are part of that. We're very early in the process on this project. Let me explain what I mean by that. There are several steps that you have to take when you're looking at building an infrastructure project. And one of them is the commercial viability of a project. So this is about a $2.5 to $3 billion or more, depending on the final scope of the project, investment by Kinder Morgan. And we have to be certain that there's a justification financially to build it. In other words, those articles and those policymakers I mentioned before, talking about what they believe to be the need for natural gas in the region, we have to have firm contracts from customers that support that. In other words, we're going to build a line. If you're a customer, Berkshire Gas or another company, you're going to commit to us that you're going to reserve space on that line to transport natural gas over a long period of time. So their commitments and contractual investments in the line justifies the private investment of the money needed to construct the pipeline. So, in addition to that, so that's the first step, and we aren't there yet. We haven't decided commercially whether we believe we're going to move forward on this project. We think we will, and we're optimistic, but there's been no final decision made on moving forward from a commercial perspective. So if you get past the commercial perspective, then you begin to look at the regulatory perspective. And can you find a route based upon what customers need? Customers serve consumers and businesses. Can you find a route that is permittable? And that involves landowners, and environmental issues, and cultural issues, and constructability issues. Can you find a route that is permittable by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is the lead federal agency, and all the state and local agencies that will also be involved? So, we are right in this piece right here. Beginning our agency consultations, trying to refine our route, which is why our land people here are here tonight, because they're trying to begin the survey process to determine the compatibility of a very tentative line that we have proposed, whether that in fact is a line that we can find to meet the criteria I mentioned on constructability and environmental issues, cultural issues, landowner issues. So we're just at this point. Now you can see here, we're moving, if this is our schedule, this is our proposed schedule. The regulators will tell us whether this is doable. And remember, we haven't applied for a single permit on this project. So we are just in the expiration stages towards a winter heating season of 2018 of being in service. And this is a fairly quick schedule in the pipeline business as far as constructing and permitting the line. And you can see the heavy emphasis here is on the permitting phase and the public participation phase. So I just want to assure everybody, I know there's been a lot of news coverage and a lot of interest in the project, and our land agents have increased that interest by knocking on doors and asking for survey permission. But we, number one, haven't decided whether we're going to move forward commercially. Number two, we haven't filed for any permits. Number three, there's going to be extensive public comment and contributions to this discussion through the scoping meetings, those are public hearings that the federal government will host, through open houses, these are company-sponsored events where we'll bring in experts from environmental area and construction and engineering to talk about the specifics of the project. All that would be forthcoming after October of 2014, because then we'll know that we're actually going to start filing for the permits on this project. So that would be forthcoming. Extensive public debate, ultimately decided by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and was called a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. So if we're able to meet all the standards put forth by all the agencies, federal, state, and local, the FERC could decide to give us a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, which means they've determined that this is in the public interest. And the FERC is a commission appointed by the President of the United States, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, as whoever is president has 3-2, and they'll make the decision in an open discussion and an open vote in Washington. So that's the long-term piece. Before that, there are dozens of permits we're going to need to secure at the federal, state, and local level, and we'll be vigorously pursuing that process with a lot of meetings like this, I'm sure, over the next few years. So 2017 would be the first time there would be any early construction activity if, in fact, all of those milestones are met that I mentioned before. So a couple of other facts about the project. At full capacity, this could serve up to an additional 1.5 million households, or the equivalent. You could add businesses in there, and that would take that number down, but the equivalent of 1.5 million households. We estimate the additional taxing payments we would make to the state of Massachusetts taxing bodies around $25 million a year. We're around $6 million now, and that would increase significantly. It's based upon the value of the pipe. So the more that the investment is in the project, the more tax revenues would generate. And the local taxing body here would also get part of that revenue. So the main line, as I mentioned, this is the larger line that we anticipate would be a 30 or 36-inch line with transport the great volumes of the gas. We're looking at some potential laterals coming off of the line. These are like off-ramps, and these are based upon customer interest. So if we were in Hollis, New Hampshire last night, and we had a discussion there about the Liberty Utilities was the local utility that's potentially interested in some gas, so we've got our Nashua lateral there that we're looking at there. And these others are based again upon a customer that is potentially looking for additional natural gas supply for their customer base. So we're potentially looking at adding these to our project based upon those customers and their interest. None of this is certain. This has changed over the past few months. I'm sure it's going to change again. These are not the big 30 or 36-inch lines. These would typically be 12 to 8 inches, something like that. But again, that has not been determined. It will be determined on customer interest. Rick, I hope that isn't our car. Is that our? Is that our? What is going to happen next? That's what it is. That's us.
That's when we don't lock our cars.
This is first in a lot of ways. All right, so thank you. Okay. So I mentioned the regulatory oversight part. This is extensively regulated, the pipeline process. And everything I'm saying so far is based upon what we propose and what we believe will be the schedule. All of these agencies will have a ultimate final say over all of this. We're the leading pipeline company in the country. We've done a lot of things in a lot of places, construction-wise, including the state of Massachusetts, with our existing Tennessee gas system. So we're familiar with the regulatory environment, but that's not to determine that we know what any of these agencies will do with our application if the project goes forward. So this is just a partial listing of the agencies. We certainly know that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is going to be the lead federal agency, and they'll have the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity that they would grant, but many other agencies. The Corps of Engineers will regulate how we cross major water bodies, for example. Fish and Wildlife will be concerned about impacts to particular endangered and threatened species. The state of Massachusetts, including the legislature, will have a role in this process, licensing board, MIPA, so extensive regulations, and the Massachusetts Conservation Commissions. So they'll have a major role as well. These are some of the towns that we believe at this point in the project, so we're still refining our proposed route, will have somehow be impacted by the potential route somewhere within the boundaries of the town. That doesn't mean all these towns have fee land or town-owned land, but the towns somehow would be have part of the pipe located in the area. This is a little bit closer map of what we're looking at as a potential route, and even closer here. So it is tough to determine exactly what the final route will be until our land agents are able to do survey. So this is about as close as we're comfortable with talking about right now, because if we, a person that's on the route today may not be on the final route, and we want to make sure that everyone knows this is tentative and prospective until we finalize the route, our preferred route that we will apply with our permits, with our permits. So you get a general idea of the corridor we're talking about going through. I'm sure you have questions about the land process and the survey process. We're here to answer those tonight with our land agents. This is the general route that we're looking at through the area. So pipeline construction obviously involves a lot of stakeholders and landowners and regulatory agencies, etc. It also involves a lot of construction work, and we expect around 3,000 construction jobs to be part of this project, and those are construction jobs. They will be for the period of construction, basically 2017, 2018, and we're going to be a labor project with the operating engineers and the laborers and building trades and others. So that's one benefit of the project. There's also the taxing revenue that will come with the project once it's in service. But the real long-lasting benefit of a project like this is energy security and energy reliability, access to more plentiful, cleaner burning natural gas, less reliance on fuel oils and other more less friendly energy for the environment, and it's domestic. This energy is here, and it's not a fantasy anymore to be talking about domestic energy independence. We all certainly remember not too long ago OPEC and other nations holding us hostage, and price spikes and all that money, billions and billions and billions of dollars going overseas to foreign governments. Now all of the money that's involved with constructing and operating and maintaining projects like this stays here domestically. And that's been a game changer really for the economy and for our trade deficit and for really the energy security and independence of the country. We've been working hard to talk to a lot of folks, meetings like this, as I said, and a lot of elected officials. This in no way means that all these folks are supportive of our project. We've briefed Governor Patrick, and he's made very clear that he'll hold us to a rigorous standard if we decide to go forward with the project, and we'll need to meet and exceed the Massachusetts standards and regulations. And I don't think there's any difference of opinion on the officials or towns that are on here that they believe the same. But we have had a lot of meetings, and we expect to have a lot more. We also try to be a good community partner where we do business and work with the community on fire protection and donating playgrounds and parks, working with schools. We recently donated some money to the Park Service to keep a beach open over in Pennsylvania. These are just samples of the community investment and commitment to communities that Kinder Morgan has, if in fact we have an asset. We also have a foundation, so we don't have a political action committee or a PAC at the company, but we do donate millions of dollars a year to schools and museums, education groups, arts organizations. So we do follow through on our verbal commitment to be a good partner in the community with actual being a good partner through donations and commitments like this. So that's our overall presentation, and we're happy to answer questions as specific as we can be at this point about the process itself and next steps and what we see over the next few months, particularly if you have land questions. Our land agents are here to talk about that. But the real Detail will come on the project if we decide to move forward. As I said, those open houses and scoping meetings and permit applications, all of that will include a lot of the detail I think a lot of you are looking for when we're committed to do the project. FERC is also a very transparent agency, the main regulatory agency on the project. They have a very good website where you can sign up for the docket number. Again, we haven't applied for this yet. If we decide to apply, you'll be able to go online and get sign up for this number, and everything that's filed on this project would be sent to your inbox. So you can get information that we file, that folks who don't like the project file, and it's a really a good, easy access to the information related to interstate pipeline projects, and that's ultimately FERC has oversight over. So with that, you want to just open up to questions, or you want to call on folks? Or? Okay. Jim, you can join me up here. Sure. Jim Hartman, you want to introduce your folks? Sure, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Good evening, folks. I'm Jim Hartman. I work out of our Enfield, Connecticut office with Alan. And joining me is Mike Lennon. And many of you might know Jim Blaze, both working in the land group with us on this project.
I should mention Rick Charbonnet too, the guy who's completely responsible for and the alarm.
Is this Rick's last night?
That's maybe Rick's last night with us. Okay, so you want to call on folks, or how do
I
you
would.
like
Whoops. I'm going to take the liberty of asking the first question because the select board did ask for this meeting. When we talked to Jim Blaze, and also things that we've been hearing from you, is that you were considering through Plainfield to follow the existing electrical lines. Have you already talked to Western Mass Electric about that, since you're talking to individual people? Have you talked with them, and what response?
We have talked with Western Mass. I actually met with Western Mass. So we are still working with them. It's a cooperative effort. There is information that's going back and forth, but as far as actual permission to get onto their lands, we don't have that.
Steve?
Just a quick question. When you went through the PowerPoint, I didn't get to read a lot of that stuff. It was flipped through very fast. Is that going to be available online anywhere?
Yes, we'll send it to, could you post it on your website? Where would we send it that it could be posted where? Hard copy, we can do a hard copy. What we've done in the towns that we've presented is we post it, send it to the town, the next day I send it to Hollis Today, they have it up on their website, and that's what most towns do. However you want to, the answer is yes. We'd be happy to post it, or have you post it, or make it available.
Can you give us
We
a
can
link?
email you a copy, and then you can send it out to people.
Yeah, that's what
That
I'm
work?
doing. We can have them at the office, at the library. A copy at the library. Yeah, we'll get Lois.
We'll get that out to you tomorrow.
Okay, next question. Ted?
What percentage of your gas leaks, and what is your stand on Senator Markey's bill on gas leakage?
I think so what Senator Markey is talking about is a concern to infrastructure companies, and it emphasizes that our pipeline infrastructure, and there are millions of miles of pipeline in the country. We've got 80,000 miles of pipe, 70,000 in natural gas, and another 10,000 in products, which is gasoline and diesel, and we provide jet fuel to a lot of the major airports in the country. So infrastructure ages, and much like roads and bridges age, and companies need to invest in infrastructure improvements and integrity management of their pipe, and we spend hundreds of millions of dollars each year to prevent accidents or prevent leakage. To your question about how much specifically all of our pipes leak, we have a zero tolerance for leakage, but I'm not going to say that we don't have incidents where we have leaks and we repair those. But from an industry perspective, it is a big issue, and companies need to invest in upfront in good pipe and good construction techniques. They need to utilize, as we do, all of the available resources for safety, that is monitoring of your pipelines from an aerial perspective and from the ground perspective, monitoring them remotely 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be able to shut down a pipe system if there is a leak, working with emergency responders on issues as well if there are impacts to communities. So pigging the lines, which is sending an internal inspection tool through the line to determine if there are imperfections. And the lines, there are a lot of modern technology being used to lessen that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the pipe itself and making sure it's properly maintained. We coat our pipes to avoid corrosion. We have a cathodic protection system, which is a small electrical current, also to prevent corrosion in our pipes. But you've got to spend the time and the resources to do the best that you can to make sure your pipe is properly maintained. And if it is, our pipe in New Hampshire is 60 years.
1951.
Some of our existing pipe is in the 50s, and so one of the questions we often get is how long is this pipe going to last? Well, there really is no end date to a pipeline's usefulness in transportation of energy. So if it's properly maintained, that is. So aging infrastructure is an issue of the millions of miles of pipe that's out there, and companies need to step up and address it, and Senator Markey is talking about that, and I think makes some very good points.
I think I'd like to follow up on that one, please. Because, I mean, it is in writing on the internet that since the year 2000, there's been over 900 accidents. That seems a lot.
Well, it's the transportation of energy, and when you transport energy, it's not immune to some type of issue. There's no secret about that. But underground pipelines, this is according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, is the safest way to transport energy. It's underground. The pipeline, and this pipeline will be completely buried. So the alternatives could be truck, could be train. All have issues, maybe pros and cons to those as well. But if you're going to transport large volumes of energy domestically to different places, the pipelines are the safest way to do it. So again, it goes back to the companies themselves that operate pipelines, and we're the biggest pipeline operator in the country. We're not a perfect company. We're always improving, but you can go to our website, kindermorgan.com, and look at our safety record, which is published online. I don't know many other companies that do that, but we do. Our financials are also online. You can see where we're spending our money. We're a pretty frugal company, no corporate aircraft, no fancy buildings. We're all about, as our CEO is, and down to all of us, are concerned for making sure our system is operating fairly. Now, are companies successful when they do that? Yes, they are. That's where we're able to employ 11,500 people across the country in good paying jobs, paying $25 million potentially in the state of Massachusetts in taxes. Only successful companies can do that. So we're about being a company that cares about the communities that it passes through our foundation and through our community investment programs, but ultimately what you learn about us is from what we do. And you can also look at where we've recently done things. Our Tennessee gas system. There are a lot of communities that have been part of the Tennessee gas system in Massachusetts for many years. I encourage you, the selectmen, the citizens, to look at where we've been and the reputation we have in those communities for operating a safe and valuable asset for the communities. Look at other major construction projects we've had across the country that we recently completed, and talk to some of the officials that are there and what they have to say about not what we said we were going to do when we came, but what we did and what they felt about us when we finished up our project. I'm not going to say everybody's going to be our best friends, but I think on balance, what we can say, because I've been there in all of our major projects in the last 10 years, in rooms like this as they've started, and I'll be at the end of this one, as will these right-of-way folks, because we're really the first people you see on these projects, and we're the ones that are there. Well, actually, we don't say goodbye, because you've been here 31 years working with landowners after it's over, and my job is this, and also the community investment we do afterwards. So it's what happens when we're done, and do we say what we're going to do that's how you ultimately, in our view, value a company. I think we have a good reputation of that. So I know we're going to get more questions, but I do ask you to, what we're really asking here, we've asked all those officials, we've from the governors to the selectmen, what we've asked folks to do is give us a chance to make our case. There'll be lots of chance for public input in much more detail than this. I know we're pretty high level today and general, but we're going to have folks in rooms probably much bigger than this in different places, and they'll be there to answer specific environmental questions. And you'll be able to see, too, our permits and our resources reports, all these voluminous documents that we file for projects like this. You're going to be able to see them and then ask us questions about those and comment publicly on it. So all that is forthcoming. Did I answer the question that was actually asked? I got
Is that with the 900 incidents?
Oh, the 900, okay. I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent there. Okay.
It's all right, I don't need that. What is your plan for surveying land where a property owner has decided that they don't want you to survey their land? And if they have a right-of-way with Wemco, is that how you get permission to get onto their property and put the pipeline in?
No, actually, and our hope is to still be able to work with you through the entire process. We're not going to say, no, you call us, we want to come out, we want to work with you, we want to talk to you, as long as you'll let us. So that never stops. We will always answer the phone. We will always come out to see. That's what we do.
The question is...
I know, I'm getting there. I'll be happy to. So if we can't do that through that process, then we do have the ability, as other entities do, to go to the Department of Public Utilities. And we'll be doing that, but only as a last resort. We have met with the Department of Public Utilities. There are our letters that I know have been mailed that are starting to go out, that one of those landowners, those 11 or 12 landowners that haven't consented to our access will be receiving those. But it's an invitation to still revisit the process. So yes, there is a public entity that we go to if we can't get onto the property voluntarily.
Are the landowners that you survey public information? Can we find out who all those people are?
Well, that's between us and the landowner. We have not distributed. There you go. Thank you.
And I'm never going to let you on my land. I want you to tell me. I want to know what's
Wait,
please.
One at a time. Will you finish answering the question? Do you have a question?
Yes. Why would I want you to have put a pipeline through my pasture, up against my barn? The property was very difficult to sell. People would go with us for a lot of money because no one wants the easement on their property for the electrical. If you add a pipeline, I think we're sunk.
All right. So the signing process is never an easy one. Whether you're siting a road, a power line, a water line, it's going to impact somebody. And what we're trying to do in this process is to identify a route that is the least impactful. Is that a route that's not going to have impacts on somebody? Absolutely not. Is it going to be on someone like yourself who doesn't want it? That's possible. But what we're trying to do is avoid as much as we can with the current regulations that are required for permitting the location of an interstate natural gas pipeline, which is what we're talking about. That's what we're trying to follow. And your interests are part of that too. The process that for survey permission or ultimately for construction of the pipeline, they're two very different things, by the way. Survey is not in any way granting us authority to build on your land. That's a whole separate process. And that's the eminent domain question, which I'm sure others are interested in what that means. That's if the federal government determines, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission determines at the end of that long process that I mentioned, which would be 2016 or later, if they determine in the vote of the commissioners, that's the presidential appointees, if they vote And up until that time, it's not a project that's been authorized by the federal government. The staff reviews it, the staff makes recommendations, but the commissioners have to go on record to vote for a certificate of public convenience and necessity. And that's what indicates that they believe, with their regulatory authority granted by Congress, that this project is in the public interest. And with that comes the authority to construct the pipeline, which means all points have to connect.
That wasn't my question. My question is, what benefit is it to the landowner to have a pipeline going through it?
I'm not going to say it is of any particular benefit to you. What we try to do in the process of locating is, if we can't find an alternative route, or we've done our best to address concerns, and landowner concerns are an issue. I'm sure you've had discussions with our agent, and you'll probably have more, or you won't have discussions. Either way,
I haven't had any discussions with anyone.
the value would be whatever is negotiated for an easement. That would be one value. The other values would be the possibility that natural gas could potentially come to the area at some point in the future.
Why would we want that?
You're asking me what
I really want to know these questions. They may sound silly, but why would we want natural gas here?
Well, a lot of customers do like natural gas delivery. It is the predominant fuel for the state of Massachusetts now, and there's an encouragement of all the governors and senators who think natural gas is an additional natural gas supply to the region is important. I'm not saying that's going to benefit you personally. You may want other forms of energy for your personal use. I'm just saying, why are projects like this determined to be in the public interest by these folks? It's for additional distribution. And that's ultimately what this is about for the folks who ultimately use it.
You had your hand up, yes.
We touched on leaking pipelines, but no mention was made of compressors. Since this natural gas is coming from most likely Pennsylvania and Ohio, and hopefully never New York, there is high radioactivity. Just the other day, an independent pilot and some friends went over the gas areas in Pennsylvania, and they were shocked at the level of radioactivity. Who's going to monitor that? Where are the compressors going to be? And what's going to be done about it if there's a high level of radioactivity? Because just one zap with radioactivity, according to Dr. Helen Caldecott, that's it.
Okay, so you're talking about compressor stations. I think you're referring to.
As well as
So right now, there are plans for a compressor station in Wright at the beginning of the route, and in Dracut at the end of the route. So 2 compressor stations are planned. Now, there could be potentially other compressor stations. This depends on what size of pipe we have and what volume of gas we have in the pipe. If there are, they will be somewhere along the route. No determination has been made on that. Those will have to be certificated and permitted along with everything else. Regarding the stations themselves, they are regulated. Air quality permits are necessary. The FERC has permits that are necessary for noise issues. So we'll be following all the regulations that are applicable to construction and operation of stations.
So could I just throw this one thing in? I already have friends who live in New York State, even though there's no drilling there yet. Right near the Millennium, one of the safest, largest pipelines, right? 2 years ago in the summer, lightning hit that compressor station. Blink and thump thing exploded. Nobody knew how to put the fire out. They had to be in touch with someone from Texas before they could get that fire out. Last year, they don't say what it was, but my friend stood on his deck and he watched this whole show. For about 3 hours, that compressor station exploded. Okay, no local fire to put that out. They had to get company people to come in. Is that comfortable living? Do you think any of these governors, if they had to live across the way from a compressor station, would agree that this was a good thing? That's a rhetorical question.
Tim? Oh, what? Yeah, hold on. You're next. Tim, here.
I understand from your slide there, the proposed capacity of 2.2 billion cubic feet per day.
Up to.
Yeah, would that be then at the larger pipe diameter?
That would be at the 36-inch
Okay,
diameter,
yeah.
yes.
And so in the perspective, for reference there, I understand that right now the total pipelines used in the Algonquin to supply New England is about 3.5 billion cubic feet per day total from all sources.
That may, I'm not sure that that's right, but I'm not going to dispute that.
Okay. And I, of course, had the impression that what triggered this was the need for additional infrastructure was the first indication of needing the extra gas was the power generation. And so the New England governors, through their NESCO, their New England States Committee on Energy, or on Electricity, of course, supported an infrastructure project. And I understand that they're looking for like 600 million cubic feet to avert this concerns that, of course, the governors want to avoid, having blackouts, because that's a big economic concern. So it just seems like this capacity is a lot more than what's needed to keep us safe from blackouts. Now, another factor is the consultants for the NESCO, they come up with different scenarios, and there's one called low demand scenario, which, of course, the governors maybe don't want to really be supporting that because they want that would mean maybe low economic growth and so forth. But what it does include there for the low demand scenario is all the states meeting their energy conservation goals. And in that case, the consultants said that there was no additional gas supply needed for the electric generation purposes. And if I could just have another minute, some earlier presentations from your company, we had two options for this northeast expansion, and the second one was a looping, 200 line looping, where your existing line either had additional pipe laid beside it, or you replaced it with bigger pipe, and that was characterized as having anywhere from 500 million to a billion cubic feet per day through that option.
Excuse me, Conrad, what's your question?
Well, how is that still on? Is that a possibility if this doesn't work out? In other words, I realize the advantages of this one is it's new business. The other one serves all the existing markets, and if the gas was in that line along existing right away, then it would be less intrusive on our pristine environment here. So that, I wonder if is that still an option?
Okay, so you made a lot of statements there, but I think the key is the line that we're proposing necessary, or is there going to be the capacity to fill the line, or are there significant alternatives? I think that's kind of what you said. And you mentioned the 200 line, that's this line here. And often, we just did a project in New Jersey and Pennsylvania recently, which was looping. We're doing another one called the Connecticut Expansion Project, which has a piece in New York and Connecticut and Mass that is looping. And what that is, it's locating pipe next to existing pipe, like a little off-ramp. And we have looked at that as a possibility. There are limitations on where those loops can be. There are limitations on capacity on that. But I fully suspect that when this analysis, if we go forward on the project, that will be an analysis that the regulators will want us to do in more detail to determine if that's a viable alternative route. Part of what the regulators do, particularly the FERC, is say, okay, this is your preferred route, this is what you want, now what alternatives have you explored? give us some options of other routes. And I fully expect there'll be third parties and NGOs and maybe even some in this room which may propose alternative routes. So we'll have to, we have looked at that, and that's something that I think through this process that will be looked at further. But as far as this project and why we're looking at whether it will be a 36-inch line or a 30-inch line, and whether it will be 2 compressor stations or more compressor stations, that's all part of the commercial and economic analysis that we're doing right now. And companies, Kinder Morgan doesn't, if you build it, will they come? That's not our motto. We don't build projects that don't have firm customer support. In fact, FERC won't allow us to build projects, even if we wanted to. Part of their regulatory oversight will be, is this project needed? Do you have customers for this? Do you have firm contracts? They're also the authority that will grant us our tariff ability, which is how much can you charge to your customers to put money in that line. So that's how we make money on our projects. Is the FERC gives us authority to charge a tariff, much like a toll, for putting product on our lines and transporting. So all that goes into account. Is there the capacity? Are there the long-term contracts? Is there the tariff ability to get the return on a private investment of that much money? So that's part of the commercial side. Then, of course, you take in all the regulatory and other issues that are part of construction and investment as well.
One more question on Margaret, I think back there, she's got her hand up quite a bit. This, back.
Marielle, I don't need the microphone.
Hi.
Hi.
Last question, by the way.
People can't hear unless you have the microphone. Your bidding process for these contracts ended March 31st, did it not?
So the open season.
Open season bidding.
Yes.
What I'm just following up what you just said, would you let us know right now who the local distribution companies are who already want to sign up, so that we can evaluate for ourselves, based on their data, how much of this gas is really intended at this moment for use in Massachusetts?
Those are still in development. So while they're still in development, no. Those are potential customers. Nothing is final yet. We're still working on contracts. Not while still in development.
Thank you, everybody, and I'm sorry everybody couldn't have a question, but it's over. I'm sorry. We have to end because we still have to have a meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well-behaved group of animals.